When my daughter screamed, "Either you do whatever Marcus says or get out of this house," I didn't break down. I didn't argue. I simply smiled, picked up my travel bag, and walked out of the home I'd spent 30 years building. She expected me to collapse like I always had before. But this time was different. I had already decided they would discover what it meant to lose the person who had been keeping their world afloat. I still held my house keys when I walked through that front door hours earlier. Shopping bags dug into my wrists, heavy with fresh produce, chicken, and dairy I had purchased with my own pension money. The afternoon sunlight streamed through my lace curtains, creating a warm glow that usually brought me peace. Not today. Marcus was sprawled across my beloved armchair, the one my late husband Robert had surprised me with for our anniversary. His dirty sneakers rested on the ottoman, an expensive craft beer dangling from his grip. The television remote balanced carelessly on his stomach. He barely acknowledged my presence. "Since you're up, grab me another beer from the kitchen," he commanded, like I was his personal servant. I set down the groceries carefully, the plastic handles leaving red marks on my palms. "I just got home." "Marcus, let me put these groceries away first." He didn't move an inch. "Make it the imported stuff, not that discount brand you buy." The irony burned. I had bought that exact brand for him. I don't even touch beer. I used part of my limited retirement funds to ensure he had his preferences. "This is my house," I said steadily, fighting to keep my voice level. Marcus swung his legs down and stood, using his height to intimidate me. At 35, he was taller and broader than I was, but I had faced down bullies since before he drew his first breath. "Your house?" He laughed mockingly. "Sarah and I live here now. We handle the bills. That makes it our place, too." Before I could answer, the kitchen door swung open. My daughter Sarah entered, an apron tied around her waist, eyes darting nervously between us. "What's happening?" she asked cautiously. "Your mother's being stubborn," Marcus replied, still glaring at me. "I simply asked for a beer, and she's acting like I requested her kidney." Sarah exhaled heavily, giving me the condescending look she'd perfected as a teenager trying to lecture me. "Mom, just get him the beer. It's not worth fighting about." Marcus smirked like he had claimed victory. "See? She understands. That's how things work now. You live here, you contribute. When I speak, you don't question it." Sarah moved beside him, creating a wall against me. "Mom, you need to choose right now. Either you cooperate with us or you can pack your belongings and leave." Her words lingered like smoke from something burning. I searched her expression for the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, but she wasn't there anymore. "All right," I said quietly. Marcus grinned with satisfaction. "Perfect. Now, about that beer." "I'll pack," I interrupted, turning toward my bedroom. The smugness vanished from his face instantly. Sarah's mouth fell open. She'd anticipated tears, pleading, maybe even an apology. Instead, I left the groceries exactly where they sat and walked to my room, my heels echoing on the hardwood floors Robert and I had installed together years ago. From the closet, I retrieved the suitcase we had bought for our honeymoon in Hawaii. Now it lay open on our old bed, ready to hold whatever I chose to take with me. I packed methodically, selecting enough clothing for several weeks, my prescription medications, and the framed photograph of Robert and me at Yellowstone. While I zipped the suitcase close, I could hear Marcus and Sarah whispering frantically in the living room, their voices hushed and desperate. When I rolled my bag down the hallway, they both fell silent. Marcus had slumped back into the armchair, but his eyes followed my every movement. Sarah stood rigidly in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, her face revealing the doubt she was trying to hide. Neither offered a farewell. I walked out to my old Honda, loaded the suitcase into the trunk, and never glanced back to see if they were watching from behind the curtains. The 15-minute drive to a modest roadside inn gave me time to reflect and remember. I had funded Sarah's graduate degree when her scholarships fell short. I had covered the entire wedding expenses when Marcus's family couldn't contribute. I had given them $80,000 from my retirement nest egg for their house down payment. And every single month, I contributed to their mortgage payments, utility bills, and grocery expenses. I had convinced myself it was love. By the time I parked in the faded lot of the Desert Rose Inn, I understood one truth completely: that love had been exploited without gratitude. The room was simple, just a bed, a small desk, and a chair beside the window. But it belonged to me. It was mine in a way my own home hadn't felt in years. I set down my bag, sat on the quilted bedspread, and opened my laptop. If they wanted me gone, they would get exactly what they'd demanded. Tomorrow, the financial support would end completely. Sunday morning arrived gray and chilly, the kind of weather that made me want to stay under the covers. But I had no intention of wasting precious time. Today was for severing financial ties. I arranged my folders and documents across the small inn table like a general preparing for battle. Bank statements, insurance paperwork, loan agreements, years of receipts and records, all meticulously organized. The first call went to Pacific Coast Bank, where I had maintained my accounts for over 15 years. "Good morning, Mrs. Chen," the representative said after I navigated their automated system. "How may I assist you today?" "I need to cancel the automatic mortgage payment for 2847 Pine Ridge Drive. The account ending in 39521. There was a pause as she accessed my information. "Ma'am, I see that payment has been active for 5 years. Are you certain you want to stop it?" "Completely certain," I confirmed. "May I ask the reason for this change?" "The homeowners no longer qualify for my financial support." She clicked several more keys. "Understood. The payment will cease immediately. You'll receive written confirmation by mail." One task completed. The next call went to my automobile insurance company. For the past 4 years, both Sarah's sedan and Marcus's pickup had been covered under my policy. $320 monthly for vehicles I never used. "I need both cars removed from my coverage effective today," I told the agent. "Of course, they'll need to obtain their own insurance to remain legal." "That's their responsibility now," I replied firmly. Then came the credit cards. Sarah was an authorized user on 4 of my accounts. Every month I had been paying off balances for purchases I never made: designer purses, expensive dinners, weekend trips to Las Vegas. "Please remove her from all accounts," I told the customer service representative. "Yes, ma'am. Any existing balance will remain your responsibility, but she won't be able to make future charges." "That's acceptable. Remove her access immediately." Each phone call felt like lifting a heavy burden from my shoulders. 25 years working as a bookkeeper had taught me how to navigate these systems effectively. Every change I made today was legal, documented, and irreversible. By noon, I had stopped the mortgage payments, canceled the insurance coverage, and locked down every card she could access. I even began the process to remove her as beneficiary from my $130,000 life insurance policy. If she wanted to live under Marcus's authority, she could do it without my financial backing. The rest of the day passed quietly. No phone calls, no text messages. I knew they wouldn't notice immediately. It wouldn't be until a payment bounced or a bill arrived addressed to them instead of me that they'd feel the foundation shift beneath their feet. But when the calls finally started coming, I was prepared. The next afternoon, my phone lit up with missed calls. First 3, then 7, then 12. By Friday, the count had reached 26. The voicemail messages told the complete story. Initially, Sarah sounded calm. "Mom, there must be some mistake with the bank. Can you please check?" Marcus's tone was more aggressive. "The car insurance expired. Fix it now." By Wednesday, panic had replaced composure. "They're threatening foreclosure proceedings." "Mom, The bank claims you stopped paying. By Thursday, Marcus was furious. You're making us look like complete deadbeats. Restore the payments immediately. And by Friday, desperation had overtaken anger. Sarah sobbed into the phone, promising we could resolve everything if I just returned her call. Marcus tried pretending his behavior had been too harsh and wanted to make amends. I deleted every message, not from vindictiveness, but because I had heard identical promises before. Empty words without meaningful action. Apologies without genuine change. Saturday morning, someone knocked on my inn door. Through the peephole, I saw them both. Sarah with swollen red eyes. Marcus looking like he hadn't slept in days. I opened the door, but didn't invite them inside. "Mom," Sarah began, her voice shaking. "We need to discuss this." "Discuss what exactly?" I asked. Marcus stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "About you cutting us off and trying to destroy our lives over some petty disagreement about a beer." I tilted my head slightly. "I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply no longer funding your lifestyle." "You can't just stop paying the mortgage," he snapped. "It's my name on the title, my signature on the documents," I replied calmly. "You were guests in my house." Sarah grabbed his arm as he moved closer. "Please, Mom, we can resolve this. Marcus was wrong to speak to you that way. We both were. But you can't just abandon us like this without any warning. You gave me an ultimatum," I reminded her. "Do what Marcus says or leave. I chose to leave." Her mouth opened, but no sound emerged. "You wanted independence," I said, looking between them both. "Now you have it. Handle it accordingly." Marcus's temper flared again, but I interrupted before he could begin. "If you continue raising your voice, I'll contact the police. This is private property, and you're disturbing other guests." They stared at me, finally seeing me for who I was. Not a walking ATM, but a woman who had finally established boundaries. Marcus mumbled something under his breath and pulled Sarah toward their car. She looked back at me once, more confused than angry. I shut the door and turned the deadbolt. There was still more work ahead, and I was just getting started. The next morning, I decided to clear my head with a walk into town. I stopped at Molly's Diner, a cozy restaurant where Robert and I used to share apple pie on Saturdays. The moment I walked through the entrance, I heard a familiar voice. "Rebecca Chen, well, I'll be damned," said Frank Morrison, a former coworker from my bookkeeping days. He got up from a corner table, a folded newspaper under his arm. I smiled and shook his hand. "Frank, it's been ages. Mind if I join you?" "I've been meaning to contact you after I heard you were at the Desert Rose Inn. Everything okay?" he asked, showing concern. I slid into the booth across from him. "It's a family matter," I said. I needed some space to think things through. He sipped his coffee, studying my face. "That son-in-law of yours tried to pull something shady at our credit union a few months back." My attention sharpened. "What do you mean?" "He came in requesting a home equity loan on your property, $60,000, Frank said, lowering his voice. "Claimed it was his house. Even brought in official-looking paperwork." The diner's noise faded away. "My property," I repeated slowly. "That's right. Looked legitimate at first, but when we ran the title search, everything came back in your name only. No co-owners, no debts." I sat back, taking this in. "When did this happen?" "Late February, maybe early March. And Rebecca, those documents were definitely forged. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was intentional fraud." The words hit me like ice water. Marcus hadn't just been disrespectful. He had plotted to steal from me. This wasn't a spontaneous conflict. It was a calculated scheme. Frank leaned closer. He listed renovations as the reason for the loan, but from what I've heard, he's drowning in gambling debts. I swallowed hard. "How deep?" "Detective William Hayes might know more. He mentioned Marcus is a regular at Thunder Valley Casino. I remembered William. His son had played Little League with Sarah. If he had information, it would be trustworthy. I thanked Frank, paid for my coffee, and left with renewed clarity. This wasn't just about disrespect. It was about control, money, and a man desperate enough to risk serious legal trouble to keep accessing my finances. That afternoon, I drove directly to the county courthouse, that imposing granite building I'd always found intimidating. Not today. It felt like a sanctuary. In the clerk's office, I presented the property deed and explained my grounds for filing eviction proceedings. "You understand this is your daughter's current residence?" the clerk asked gently. "It's my property," I stated firmly. We had a verbal arrangement requiring mutual respect and contribution to expenses. They've violated both conditions. She stamped the documents and gave me copies. The sheriff's department will serve these papers within 48 hours. If they contest the eviction, we'll schedule a court hearing. I left the courthouse with legal backing. No more arguments. No more guilt. My next stop was the police station. William Hayes's office was a cramped space filled with filing cabinets and half-empty coffee cups. He greeted me warmly, but got serious when I explained my visit. "Yes, Marcus is well known at Thunder Valley," William confirmed. "He plays high-stakes poker and recently increased his betting limits. We've heard he owes between $20,000 and $25,000. Some to private lenders you wouldn't want to encounter alone." The pieces fit together perfectly. The sudden demands, the ultimatum, the years of pretending my financial help was temporary. "Thank you, William," I said, standing up. "That's exactly what I needed." When I returned to my in-room, I opened a new document on my laptop titled Marcus Williams Evidence File. Frank's story, Williams' info, the forged loan documents, the gambling debts, all of it would go in there. For the first time in years, I wasn't just reacting to what Marcus and Sarah had done. I was forming my own strategy. This plan would end on my terms only. The next day, I woke with a single goal: keep Marcus far away from me and my assets. By mid-morning, I was back at the police station, this time with printed timelines, bank records, and a flash drive with footage from the inn's security cameras showing him lurking outside my door after midnight. Detective William Hayes reviewed the footage, his expression hardening. "This is harassment, Rebecca. Combined with what I witnessed at the credit union last month, we can file for a restraining order immediately." Within 3 hours, a judge signed the order. Effective immediately, Marcus Williams could not come within 1,000 feet of me, my inn, or my property. Any violation meant automatic arrest. It wasn't just a legal boundary. It was the first time in years I felt truly safe. That afternoon, I began making my next series of calls, not to help Marcus, but to dismantle the false web he had built. "Mr. Rodriguez, this is Rebecca Chen. You've been calling about Marcus Williams. He no longer lives at my address and doesn't have any rights to my property," I informed one of his creditors. "Noted, Mrs. Chen," Mr. Rodriguez replied, quickly realizing the lead he had was worthless. 7 more calls went similarly. Each collection agency was told politely and factually that Marcus was no longer connected to me financially. No, I wouldn't be covering his debts. Yes, they should contact him directly at his workplace. By evening, his financial house of cards was trembling. By morning, I knew it would completely collapse. The town's gossip network was already in full swing. At Molly's Diner, I overheard older patrons whispering over their pancakes. Apparently, he owes almost 30 grand in gambling debts. She's been covering their bills for years. No wonder. She finally walked away. At Peterson's Hardware, where I'd worked part-time after retirement, my former boss, Mike, shook his head disapprovingly. "Marcus told people he was helping you with the mortgage payments. Now we find out you were paying theirs." Even Reverend Thomas from my church approached me after service, his eyes filled with quiet compassion. "Rebecca, Sometimes love means allowing people to face the consequences of their own actions, he said softly. I hope you find peace in this journey. I was beginning to. 3 days later, word spread even faster. The sheriff's office had served Marcus both the eviction notice and the restraining order. That same afternoon, his supervisor at Davidson Motors called me. Rebecca, I've known you for 15 years. I don't believe a single word he's spreading about you, Mr. Davidson said. But customers are talking. Some have mentioned gambling, debts, and fraudulent loan applications. I can't have that reputation connected to my dealership. I anticipated what was coming before he spoke. I'm terminating his employment. I thanked him and hung up. The satisfaction didn't come from his firing. It came from knowing Marcus's own lies had finally caught up with him, and I hadn't needed to raise my voice even once. By the end of the week, I drove past my old home. 4 different collection agency vehicles had parked outside at various times throughout the day. Through the window, I could see Sarah and Marcus in a heated argument. Her arms crossed defensively while he paced back and forth. The walls built from my generosity were crumbling, and I wasn't lifting a finger to stop it. By midweek, I decided it was time to present Sarah with a choice she couldn't avoid. I called her early in the morning. This conversation will be just you and me, I said firmly. If Marcus is there, it's not happening. There was a long pause, then a resigned sigh. Where and when? Friday, 2 o'clock, back booth at Molly's Diner. When she came in, I barely recognized her. At 27, she looked closer to 37. Dark shadows hung under her eyes, her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, and her fingers nervously fidgeted with her purse strap. She didn't waste any time. Mom, the phone calls won't stop. Collectors are showing up at the house. Marcus lost his job, the mortgage, the utilities. We can't manage everything. I don't know what to do anymore. I sipped my coffee calmly. I'm offering you one way to leave this situation with some dignity intact. Her brow furrowed. What way? You tell the truth publicly. Church testimony on Sunday, a letter to the Pine Valley Gazette, and a social media post for every mutual friend. We share the complete truth about the money I've given you both and the ultimatum you delivered to me. Her face reddened. You want me to humiliate myself publicly? I want you to be honest. There's a big difference. She stared into her coffee cup. And Marcus? He's no longer part of my life permanently. If you stay with him, you're choosing him over any relationship with me. That's your choice. It stayed quiet for a long time. Then she asked softly, What about the house? It's being handed over to the Pine Valley Veterans Housing Initiative. 4 veteran families will move in by spring. Even if you do everything I've requested, that decision is final. The words landed like a stone between us. Why? She whispered. Because I need to know that any reconciliation is about love, not what you think you might inherit someday. I was a mother first, but I refused to be a personal bank ever again. Her eyes filled with tears, and for once the emotion felt genuine. I'm sorry, Mom. I never thought it would escalate this far. Sorry isn't enough anymore, Sarah. Actions matter. I'll know your choice by Sunday morning. Sunday arrived bright and cold. The church was fuller than usual. Word had spread throughout our small community. I sat 4 rows from the front, hands folded, watching the entrance. When testimony time arrived, Sarah stood from the back pew. She looked pale but determined as she walked down the center aisle. At the podium, she gripped the edges and began speaking. Her voice carried through the silent sanctuary. For 6 years, my mother, Rebecca Chen, paid for my education, my wedding, our mortgage payments, and our monthly bills while living completely on her own fixed retirement income. She sacrificed her comfort so we could enjoy ours. When my husband disrespected her in her own home, I sided with him completely. I told her to obey him or leave. She left, and I want everyone to know she was absolutely right to do so. The room remained silent as she detailed the money, the years, the ultimatums, and the truth we both knew but had never acknowledged aloud. When she finished, she looked at me directly. "Mom, I'm deeply sorry, and I'm ready to earn back your trust." That afternoon, people approached me with hugs and quiet words of support. Mike from the hardware store squeezed my shoulder. "That took real courage from both of you." Later, Sarah told me Marcus had packed his things and left the night before. No note, no forward plan, just gone. 4 months later, I stood in the yard of my former property, watching 4 veteran families move into the newly renovated units. Children's laughter echoed off the walls I had once cleaned myself. Staff Sergeant. Maria Gonzalez shook my hand, her eyes bright with genuine gratitude. "Mrs. Chen, this means everything to us. Thank you so much." "Veterans understand the meaning of sacrifice," I said simply. "This house should belong to people who understand that value." These days, I live in a small cottage by the lake. I enjoy morning coffee on the deck, afternoons fishing, and evenings reading in complete peace. Last week, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. 4 months into counseling, learning so much. Can we have coffee? I'd like to keep earning your trust. I looked out at the water, the sun catching the gentle ripples, and smiled. Saturday morning, Molly's Diner. I'll be there. Justice served, dignity preserved, and maybe, just maybe, a daughter finally learning the difference between love and exploitation. If this story moved you, subscribe so you never miss the next chapter of courage and redemption. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had to walk away to protect your peace? I'd love to hear your story. If you believe no one should be forced to choose between dignity and family, share this with someone who needs to be reminded. Love without respect is not love at all.